Welcome everyone to Tarot Journeys with Guy. How's everybody doing out there? Now, wow, we're seeing a lot happen. Everything is coming out. Now, with this thing in the southern states with Fema and the repercussions of Hurricane Helene and how the government basically is standing down. And then Kamala Harris pledging money to Lebanon and not pledging money to the people, right? And so it's very obvious how there is a concentrated attack on the people. Now, one of the things that's very clear is that this scenario is going to prevent Republican voters. And this is also what's come out, right? And so now we've got another hurricane being cooked up in the Gulf of Mexico right now, about to land on the West Coast, right? And so it's another sort of case of weather manipulation and, weaponized weather and utilizing technology that they've been gaslighting and lying about for decades and utilizing it to that end. And we're seeing on the ground the effects of what's going to happen. The other part of it, kind of like what we saw with Hawaii, is the taking over of the land for economic purposes. Some people were talking about lithium mines, oil and gas. But in many ways, it has a lot to do with this World Economic Forum, BlackRock initiated plan of gobbling up resources, of taking over, right? And buying up properties once the property values sink, and making it such that these areas are not insurable. And man, it goes on and on and on, right? So there's another one coming in. So we, pray for the people that are there. We need to, with our intention also, to offset some of this stuff, right? One of the good things, I guess, was this workers' union strike got put on hold, which is kind of funny. I kind of thought that something like that might happen, right? And just this continued escalation of events and the continued escalation of both war fronts with Ukraine and Russia and Israel and the Middle East, right? And so, yeah, and all the leaders, they're all coming out, basically admitting to clamping down, admitting to wanting to censor everybody, admitting to their plans, basically, of limiting civilization, limiting growth, their depopulation projects, everything. All of it has come out, right? So we've seen the weaponization of the law, the weaponization of the economy, weaponization of people, weaponization of the weather, weaponization of biology, weaponization of everything. And that's the nature of what we're in. This war against the people is all over the Western world, definitely. And so as the populist movements and the people start to make strides against this totalitarian attempted takeover, they go sort of, they double down basically and start going after people in a more concentrated effort. But yet every step of the way their plans start to become exposed, right? So we're in that corridor right into the election time period. And, part of the information war there is to make people believe that somehow the Democrats right now, and I guess this goes to say with any globalist deep state controlled media, that they attempt to make it look like they're higher ahead of the polls than they actually are, right? And what we saw on the weekend was Trump going back to Butler, Pennsylvania, and Elon Musk was there. And it was JD Vance, and it was a big, it's him going back in an open-aired, right in the exact place where the attempted assassination took place, right? And then also seeing Elon Musk come together with him. This is another kind of, coming together that the globalist deep state just can't stand, right? And it just inflames them. But it also speaks of how people are seeing the direction of things. People have chosen sides, right? And so, this is a good thing. Like Elon Musk is one of these people, obviously, he's standing up for free speech right now. So we have to back that. It's also what he's saying against this entrenched globalist element, especially in the United States, but it's also global, right? And so it's just freaking them out. It's just, they don't know how to sort of, they don't know how to take it. They don't know how to take the fact that they're going to lose, right? So that's why we're seeing the chaos in the world, right? Yeah, that plan is going to be implemented everywhere. The social credit system, sort of a martial law state, a complete totalitarian clampdown, and everything being rolled back, your resources being rolled back, our civilization essentially being sort of cut down. Okay, so let's see here. We've got this hurricane approaching the coast of Florida, and you better believe I totally think that this is steered with high altitude antennas, potentially with Doppler radar, and not only that, they have this ability of cooling and heating the hurricane and the direction of it with I guess dried ice and different oxides and things, and they do these drops. And then we saw this in Dubai a couple months ago, I guess, where all of this cloud seeding, I guess it's called, right? Where they seed the cloud with the dry ice and other chemicals as well to induce rain, and they did too much, I guess, or they don't understand how it works, I don't think. And they caused a lot of flooding, right? And it's the same thing. We're seeing the exact same thing, right? So the attacks are on, and they really want to prevent people from going and voting in a lot of ways. It really comes down to that. Because what we're looking at is a potential massive landslide for President Trump. And they don't know what to do about it, right? So, they've got other things in store. Anyway, let's stay on target, let's stay on point, and let's see what message we need to receive. What do we need to look at? It's going to help us navigate a little bit in this time period. Let's see what comes up, and then we'll move on from there. Okay, so past, present, future. And this is the spiritual direction, the spiritual insight, and this is the material world, the foundation of what's going on. And right now, and also these cards here help give us advice, right? So present situation right now, we're like I was saying, the motion, 8 of Wands here in the present represents an energy, a willful energy, right? This energy that is moving, right? So there is a movement going on. There is this thing of the shifting tide, and it's happening in that energetically. This is what's taking place in a lot of ways. You can really clamp it down to the human camp versus the anti-human camp. Globalist totalitarians versus the people. And it's that clear. The globalist totalitarian deep state versus the people. And the people are awakening. There is an awakening process. Part of that awakening process is getting all of the things that have been so ingrained within the Western culture that have been lead us to the root of the real issue, of the corruption of the scenario that we're living in, right? Which is an attempted coup, an infiltration, right? A complete takeover, right? So, and that's the thing, is we got to not mince words about it. It's actually happening. So, but a big part of what has also triggered these guys to sort of move into sort of action is the knowledge that people will be awakening. People will sort of like, and I'm talking on a massive scale, like civilization scale, take that leap in consciousness. And that is what is producing that awakening. That spiritual consciousness is rising in people, right? So as the people awaken and as that movement moves, they're triggering their war efforts, right? And so what we've seen is that their whole apparatus of tyranny and totalitarianism, the war machine, when it is not directed outward, it is directed inward on its own people. Okay, and that, in a way, that's its ultimate goal, right? So what we've seen is a reversal of that. It's kind of like pushed outwards in a way. I mean, no, the attack is definitely on the people still, but they want people to sort of believe that the global situation is such where there is a war looming, right? That war scenario, you know, and I mean, you can crack it down to like 8 different things that they keep pushing, right? Like war, and we talk about this all the time, all the different threats and fears that they keep pushing, right? The war, climate, environmental disaster, the economy, health, societal collapse, you know, using the border invasion, the UN migration scenario, illegal migration scenario in the Western world as a way to do that, right? And so they're attacks on our awakening in many ways, right? So yeah, and that's the thing. It's like this weather thing too is another one that we can't discount, and you can't let people kind of gaslight you into believing otherwise, because there's so much information out there. They basically have admitted it. They admitted to having this technology quite a while ago, and that's what they do is they slowly start disclosing and admitting certain aspects of things that they've been keeping hidden. It makes much more sense when you're looking at like what these deep state, like what Kamala is saying, for instance, and it seems like it doesn't make sense, but then you have to plug into the idea that she's placed there to make it appear as though it doesn't make sense. She's there to crash everything. She's there to ruin your confidence. They know that they're not going to get her in. It's on purpose, like this thing. It's so daft to give hundreds of millions of dollars. What was it, $160 million to Lebanon, right in line with this thing. And then, you know, it was like her on the ground saying that she's going to give $750 to people who have lost everything. And this is what they do. They laugh in our faces, right? And so that's kind of what this is talking about. It's like they're purposely creating like the roadblocks, right? And they don't want you to sort of look at the real thing of them causing this on purpose and the timing of it and how perfectly timed all of this stuff is, right? Oh yeah, today is the anniversary of October 7th, the Hamas attack on Israel, right? Interesting in a sense, right? So it's like a year, this whole year has been crazy. So, and it's the same thing. We have these people ingrained they're in every aspect of our culture, right? And that situation, the Israeli situation, the situation in the Middle East is one of the prime examples of how they have been manipulating the circumstance there and creating and furthering it and not solving any of the problems. And it's wild, right? It just is wild. And now it's tearing apart the world. And like you go back and you think back this whole year, these pro-Palestinian protests, and I guess, you know, like the counter protest to it, pro-Israeli, pro-patriot protest. And it's funny how they've been kind of lumped, the categories have been lumped, but you look back and it's very similar to that the BLM riots in 2020, right? But worse. It's basically has ripped apart the Western world. It's ripped apart Europe. It's ripped apart the UK, right? That those divisions are so clear, right? And that's kind of what I was saying. It's like these guys, they have no other choice. Like the Patriot side of these causes have no other choice but to sort of attempt to take over operations that these guys have initiated. And a lot of these world events, they're operations. They're engineered, and they're not by happenstance, right? And so it's like with this environmental disaster, this gives the government the ability to initiate emergency powers, and this is where the shadow government, this is where this deep state infiltration is sort of taken over, has come to the surface. This is what they want, is us to make it legitimate in some ways. And that they take over and they institute these emergency powers, and there's like, can't remember, there's 40 plus executive orders, emergency powers that are still initiated going back, like, I mean, even before 9/11, but 9/11 was a big one, right? And this is kind of what they're doing. It's like the test run of it as well, right? And really it relies on it. It's like, how much are the people going to take? They expect us just to lie down and take it, right? In so many ways. But then the other thing is utilizing any kind of violent reaction that may come out of the populace, right? And then further clampdown, right? And so, right, this is what they're attempting to initiate here, and they're doing it all over. Will the people stop it? Right? That's the big question. The people have to stop it in their tracks right now. Like this thing of like the government telling people to stop helping other people when the government themselves, like the Fema, Federal Environmental Management Agency, aren't doing their job, like airlifting people in and out, or supplies, or, oh man, this thing with cutting people off from communications and not providing it. It's just absolutely insane. Like the last couple of years, they were the government, the Biden administration was supposed to implement a rural internet connectivity program. Billions of dollars, all wasted. They did nothing. And now it comes down to Elon Musk's Starlink. Right? And so, man, are the people going to stop it? Are the people going to question this? I mean, this is why the United States is so important, because it's that individual impulse that's there, and the desire to stand against tyranny, and that freedom of ability and freedom, just the sense of freedom, and looking out for oneself and your fellow human rather than relying on the state is a huge part of that whole United States ethos that's being erased. Will the people stop it? That's the question. That's what we have to talk about, right? They don't want us standing up. They don't want us. And that's the thing. I think any place where people in a concentrated sort of groupings, like enough people, stand up and say, hey, look, you're the government. You should be doing your job. You're not. Get out of here. What are you doing? You don't have authority over us. We'll give you authority. That's the dialogue people need to be having, period, in every aspect. But there is a segment of our society that want to give over their power, right? They want to let the state into their lives. This is the issue. This is what we got to deal with, okay? But yet, part of the awakening is waking up to this, waking up to, like, a lot of those people waking up to the idea, like, those thoughts aren't your own. They've been placed there subtly over a long period of time. Yeah, and they've been dangling this thing with the money, right? And so we're seeing, like, aspects on how they could really tank. Well, they are tanking the economy. If we have, like, for instance, people need to really register, like, if you have another Biden, Kamala administration, Obama, deep state cutout administration, instantly everything's going to be tanked. That's what they've got planned, right? But it's like they're trying to wait, see, because on the back burner, we've got the digital ID thing, and we've got the digital centralized currency sort of in the tow. And that with that is, there's that social credit system, right? But it's not, right? They've got that kind of, they're waiting, right? There's a concentrated effort. So you got this group that just will not let go. They are going to do whatever they can to stay in their position. And that's where, in a way, that's where the real battle is. And that battle is going to continue on because they're in control of a lot of the resources, and getting that control out of their hands is that's the big game, right? And it's like they have to almost let go on their own. Some of them have. I mean, this is, I think, where we see Elon Musk. I'm not sure with him. I kind of back him right now, but yet very uncertain, because he's, like, it's interesting, very interesting. A lot of the globalist technology, a lot of their sort of transhumanist ideas, like technologically, have been sort of pushed through with him. He's done a lot of work on the back end for them for years. This is, I mean, the nature of it. You don't get into their system without going, like, you don't get to that level without going through their system in some ways. But yet there's also the breakaway. So you've got the breakaway, you got this globalist elite that are attempting to break away from civilization, may have already created some kind of breakaway scenario, right? But then you've got the breakaway from the breakaway. That's what we're dealing with. That's where you got Team Trump, and you got the group of billionaires, and Elon Musk represents one of them, that kind of back Trump now, right? In the America First scenario. And we got to kind of go, I guess we have to kind of go back to that, because in a way, reinforcing the nation states is sort of what's needed to offset this kind of global governance system that they're trying to insert undemocratically, right? Something like that has to come about through the agreement of nations, not through the elimination of the nation state. And essentially what they're trying to do is eliminate the nation state. And so, and that goes back, that's why they talk about Marxism and they talk about communism, because that goes back to the 1920s to the 1930s, 60s, the international communist revolution and the institution of internationalism, right? This is part of it where they get that impulse, It's always been this thing of, like, these guys that are in control psychologically projecting onto us that things are worse than they actually are. And that's kind of what this is. It's like these guys, this globalist elite, this breakaway group, are losing their grip on power, and they know it. That's why they keep coming out with stuff. Keep doubling down, essentially, right? That's sort of what we're seeing. Okay, let's pull another one. Let's see here. Let's do the deep state versus the Patriot, the game plan spread with the 9 cards. So we have on one side, we have Patriot side, Team Trump, and we'll stay on that kind of ticket, right? But that kind of applies to all the Patriots in the world, not just the Team Trump part of it, even though that's important right now. And then the deep state, and then in the middle is sort of like how the interplay is, how the exchange is between these two. Okay, let's take a look here. So like I said, the Patriot side is on this side here, and then we've got the deep state on this side and the interplay. So again, we've got the other card here that talks about spying and social media. A lot of, especially spying, I kind of saw that, right? Yeah, they're trying, like, man, this is definitely, I mean, this is part of that information war. There's such a momentum towards this populist movement to Trump side, right? And they've got good, sound economic footing, right? He's proved himself. And a lot of people, like, they may not admit it, like, especially in like higher industry and stuff, they're starting to switch sides with him, because he's talking about abundance, okay? And the other side is this working towards like a great reset, this limiting the economy, okay? So what they're trying to do is make it seem like their agenda, which this kind of idea of like 2030 agenda, we're coming up towards that, right, is not real, and not only trying to steal some of their ideas, but like trying to associate some of these these decrepit ideas with the patriot side, right? And just creating confusion, creating complete confusion. They want people to submit. They want people to volunteer to this insanity, right? And so, I mean, part of that is this idea that humans are creating adverse effects with the climate versus them manipulating the climate, them creating a scenario, calamity, to hook people's perception, right, as a psychological warfare tactic, okay? And that's, man, and not only that, that's part of that big sucking up of resources, right? And so, and that's one thing. And then the other thing too is they can't battle this notion of like, look what, like, for instance, like the Democratic side, like what the Kamala Harris administration right now is doing with the ground efforts with this disaster, which they potentially caused, allegedly, or however you want to talk about it. They allegedly have the technology to manipulate it, or even just to the point of their incompetence and standing down. And you've got these people that are DEI hires, these inclusional types that are talking about non-gendered bathrooms and how it's good that most of these places that got hit by Hurricane Helene are Republican, and that it's good. Man, these people are terrible, and they need to be like totally rooted out and like taken out of their positions. They need to be exposed for the criminality that they all are, especially when it comes terms to people's lives, right? It's like, we don't know the number of people, of the loss of life there. You know, it's enough to be alarming in relation to these policy situation, right? So that's the thing, is that's what they're covering, and they can't, like, they wanted us to believe that they were the majority, the woke, deep state, indoctrinated, mind controlled, inclusionary types that are inserted into government, that they're, you know, and that in society that they're the majority, but they're not. The majority of people are against this stuff and against their policies and against what they're doing, right? What's the purpose of the government? And I mean, that's a good sort of measure of where a person's sort of politic lies, because, man, the nature of the government for these people is to control us, is to suck our resources dry and to essentially kill us off. Right? So funny too, the P. Diddy stuff just came out right in time too. It's almost perfect, and it's kind of like the assassination thing. Nobody's talking about it now. I mean, it's the nature of the internet, but it's also the nature of the cover-up. So there's a bit of an information, there's a war going on for that as well. How much of that information should come out, how much of it shouldn't, who are the people that are really connected with all of that stuff, right? It should be alarming to people. It should be very alarming to people. More attacks on Team Trump that being deflected, and I mean, Trump needs to be very careful, because they could attempt another assassination, It's very possible, man. That's, yeah, but it's like lawfare attacks, attacks on his character, attacks on his family members still, right? It's the same thing. They're almost jealous of him, right? It's like, it's so apparent. And that's sort of one of the things like you got to keep in mind. So I keep pointing to this page of swords here and I keep going like this, okay, this L, but it's this thing of like, they don't want us to see what they're up to. They're creating this situation where parallel scenarios start to form in our minds. It's cognitive dissonance, right? Purposely creating the cognitive dissonance around all of these different scenarios, okay? Don't be surprised too if there's some kind of like maybe even like a internet outage of some sort, like a massive one, like a big hit. Because that is also what they've been sort of priming people for a very long time. And that's also something that can really shut down the election. Right? But these guys are done. This is what they have to realize. They're done. All over the world, they're done. And the more that they attempt to clamp down, the more people are going to sort of stand up and push back, right? The divisiveness around the Israeli situation is just, to me, is so obvious. And so really go look at the history of that part of the world and how manipulated it really is, but also what the Israeli Jewish people have had to go through. Okay? And, what we're dealing with is a group of people that don't necessarily aspire to one particular race or culture or identity. It's not like that. They have come together to share power. They don't care about any of that stuff. It's our own people doing it to ourselves. So it's like, it's the same in the Islamic world. Like how can they not see that their own leaders are screwing around? But it's the same with us, right? We've been under the same scenario, right? So it's terrible. It's terrible all around. And the attempt to create war and fight, has to be stopped. But yet these divisions that continue to sort of to be perpetuated it has to be solved in some ways, right? And so I really do believe it's this silent majority of people, the people that usually just lay down. This is what the awakening is about. This is where we need to be ignited. We need to stand up and say no. We need to say no to these tyrants and these people that push us towards violence and war and destruction, and giving them our resources and then corrupting all that is good, right? That's what's happening. Same deal as with the Russian-Ukrainian thing. It's the people, are the ones that are that are being harmed, and to sort of get pulled into, one side or the other, especially on the sidelines like this, like how we're talking right now, is kind of missing the point, right? Especially if you have the knowledge of what this breakaway elitist globalist deep state group have been doing, and the machinations and the pulling of strings. And it's a very serious game because lots of people are dying, and that's what they want. And the nature of the Great Awakening is to stop them, is to prevent them from pulling it, and to pull them out of the positions of power now. This is what we've got to do. We've got to do it in a non-violent way. We need to do it through peaceful civil disobedience and the democratic process and the process of truth and the process of freedom. And it has to be done that way. So it's, that's where we're heading. And the work that we all have to do is kind of ties into that in a way, because we can't run and hide anymore. Anyway, one more. Let's see what we need to hear. A little guidance. This card again, Energy. The sun represents the vital energy flow, our spiritual true self in a lot of ways. The inner child, the Christ consciousness that's within us, that is there. Okay? That idea of that heightened awareness, that awakening. That, so it's like restoring our connection, restoring our thoughts towards that. That's what can help right now. Be proactive. If you're in a place right now where, like for instance, anywhere where there's risk of danger or whatever, and you're feeling the impulse to get out. Pay attention to that inner voice. If it says, whoa, chill out, be chill, calm down. Pay attention, right? Don't let right? Like, especially like watching videos like this, or, like the internet, and don't let it whip you into the frenzy. Like we always are talking about this, right? Pay attention to what's real in the real world and move with it, right? But don't get caught in that frenzy. If you feel like you're being sort of whipped up into that, the panic and the, anxiety and fear that comes from all of that, that's the sign to step aside. You're going to come back to it, but just take a little break, whatever it is that you're doing. Restore it with breath work. Restore it. Take a deep breath in, breath out. Breathe out the fear. Breathe in love, right? Connect with the earth, connect with source. Right? That breath is really important. And silence the mind. Give yourself a little bit of a silence moment, right? Restore, and for people that are really plugged into the tarot and study the tarot, use the high priestess as a meditation. She represents the inner silence that's within us. It's the spiritual path in a lot of ways, right? But she's well seated within that spiritual path, and her tools are all there. She knows exactly how to navigate these waters. And the only way to navigate these waters is first from that place of inner silence. It's very true. And it can restore that. It can restore that sense of like that energy, right? Because really what's real is this awakening, is this energy, is this movement of people. And so like even aside, like many spiritual people, we are kind of pushed aside right now in some ways, but energetically we are to take part. And so we can't let the fear and the negativity override us. We need the other part of it, that inspiration, that life-affirming part that's taking part, that awakening aspect. Like I was saying, it's like we need to be in that vibration of awakening and that encouragement and that inspiration right now, because that's what's moving things along. That's what's shifting the tide. We may not see direct results right away, but we are seeing them, right? But we have to continue, and we have to continue to encourage each other to stay on that vibration right now, because it is what is shifting these guys, okay? So I hope that was clear. I hope you enjoyed. So that's it for today. So hit the like button, make sure you subscribe, and hope to see you on the next one. Bye-bye.